بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. All right, we continue today with Fiqh Focus, Navigating Ramadan. The intention of this class has been to try and get a little bit of preparation for the month of Ramadan, because that is the month where we exert a lot of effort for our spirituality. We try to improve ourselves. We try to get, as I was mentioning last week, we get back pure in our souls. One of the major reasons for the month of Ramadan is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you become muttaqi. And muttaqi means you fear Allah, and a person who fears Allah, he is very close to Allah and he is very much in connection with Allah. So he's connected, very well connected. And I was mentioning about many of our scholars of the past. This is the line, not just scholars, but the prophets of Allah. That's our lineage, the prophethood. They were very pure souls. And then came the Sahaba, the Shuhada, the Saddiqeen, the Salihin. These are the titles that Allah used for different types of people that fulfill their obligation to Him. So that itself is our hope and our desire every single day. And how do I prove that? I said we get it in where? How do we ask for that every single day? If you can recall. What? Yeah, but special dua. The most special du'as that you'll find. The dua in where? No? I saying every day we ask for this dua. No? In the salah. No? Surah Fatiha. Right? So I have to write notes, the sister come out note pardoning or that come out all the note, don't look like we look shape. Yeah, so as I was saying last week, is that every single day we ask Allah to be amongst people. And the people are selected people. Alladhi an'amta alayhim. The people, O Allah, that you have bestowed your favors upon. Every day we say, Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. We ask for the pathway. Whose pathway? The pathway of those people who you have bestowed favors. So I'm trying to bring about the importance. This is the first point to note, inshallah, to recap, is recapping as well from last week, is that we ask every day to be amongst a group of people. So in Islam, we understand that there's a very strong social order, a social involvement, or even us revering and venerating certain groups of people. And not because, and I mentioned as well, not because of we're just doing that just for so, we're doing that because we need examples in our life. We need people that we can turn ourselves, we can relate to, we can talk to when we're trying to, figure out something. So many a times when we have issues in our lives and we're trying to figure out, how do I deal with that? You look at the stories of the prophets of Allah, the Anbiya. You look at Yusuf alayhi salam when he was tested with temptations. We look at Musa alayhi salam when he was tested with patience and with tyranny from his leader, right? His thing. We look at Yunus alayhi salam when he was trapped in the whale and he was overwhelmed, overcome. He didn't have so much of that charisma anymore because he was placed in a stomach of a whale. This is a real thing. It's not just a fantasy thing, It's, think about a whale and the different chemicals and the different excretions that would come in there to digest food and all these things. It's a real thing, right? So similarly, we look at the lives of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, the pious predecessors, and that's how we learn, okay, we need to improve ourselves and check on our own practices as people. So I always encourage, read the seerah of our pious predecessors. And that does not stop at just the prophets of Allah. As Allah has said in these verses, He didn't stop there. He didn't just stop at the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. He said the Siddiqeen. He said the Shuhada. He said the Salihin. He's quoting groups of people, which also is there relatable to us. So that's why Allah will always send people amongst us or in our close generation that we can connect to. Furthermore, I'll just draw one point about this because these things come up sometimes. Sometimes I used to think personally, like, why talk about things that we've spoken about over years and years on end? Or why talk about things where you can easily go on Google and go on YouTube and find these topics being discussed thoroughly? And you would want to know, like, why do it again when you know somebody else doing something similar? Is a fair point, right? I mean, I don't know if you all see that merit or not, but when we have exactly, that's one point. That's a very good point as well. But furthermore, like, just say we're doing a series on Sirah of the prophets of Allah. Can we not find that online? Like, not so difficult to get that, right? But the reality is, after years of doing this, then I realized, you know what? People don't gravitate to somebody who they don't know. They have to get some type of connection to that person first, some kind of recognition. Even though I'll look at the online space a little bit, only when that person becomes an acceptable entity, then you will say, okay, well, let me listen to a few things here and there. Before that, you don't really connect to someone until you have some essence of their life, some kind of recognition. People talk about them, people say, that's a good scholar to listen to. You see something that attracts you, you see some kind of personality that connects you to that person, whatever it is, then you start that process. Otherwise, you have thousands of people online, but so what? What does it make? It doesn't make a difference to me. So the reality, and I draw this point as well. Sometimes, I feel I repeated myself, but inshallah, you can tell me if I repeated myself too much. The point I was making last week as well is that that's why we need to have these fixed durus taking place from the masajid. And it doesn't matter if it's 1, 10, 5, 20 people, 100 people. It's a responsibility on the masjid that the masjid must facilitate these things happening, because inshallah with that is the barakah of knowledge that continues spreading. And they know nothing about that thing. For them, don't know that I thought they could do that thing, that they right? Certainly. So, ilm and knowledge, seeking knowledge is actually an obligation upon every single Muslim that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam reminded us about. But furthermore, seeking knowledge is a day-to-day and a day-to-day practice of a believer. But if you look at our practices of life, we're busy, we have work, we have jobs and so on. I remember there's one hadith where the Sahabi, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, was placed in this position after the demise of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said that how someone came to him and said, you know what, can you start teaching us every single day so that we can learn? And he said, you know what, I will do my duty as a scholar of the Sahaba, but let's have it once a week. He fixed the thing for once a week. So from that as well, you can tell that, you know what, and his explanation is that perhaps people become bored and they stop learning. Because it's necessary to instill learning in your process as a believer, as a person, but you have to make it such as practical that everybody does it and it should be a norm in society. So we have to promote this type of practice where every single week, at least once a week, someone dedicates some portion of his week, an hour, 2 hours towards learning. Without that, you become incomplete as a progressive, let's use that word. We use it in different terminologies these days, but a progressive Muslim. I mean, a believer who improves his iman, improves his connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has to make sure that he connects and he makes sure that he fixes at least once a week. So anyway, where we ended last week, let's continue from there, inshallah. We said, what are some of the disciplines of Islamic academia? And you all remember when we were talking about, look some of it on the board as well there. You all see the board, right? Huh? Yeah, so I was saying there's a tafsir class that takes place, right? That is tomorrow after the Maghrib Salah as well. This is a mixed class with fiqh, with hadith, with understanding, and quite frankly, any one of them you touch, you will see different things being talked about, right? Because I will quote a hadith, I will quote a verse of Quran, I'll quote aspects of the Sharia, I'll quote fiqh, so it encompasses our deen, right? Generally. But the point I'm making is disciplines itself is something that we should understand. And this is where we started to go. When a person goes and delve into this one discipline, which is tafsir, Imam Suyuti rahimahullah, who is a great mufassir, he talks about the science of tafsir. Now, what is tafsir again? Everybody getting lost in now? What's tafsir? Remember? You could answer. What's tafsir? The explanation of the Quran, right? Simple. So he says, yeah. So in tafsir alone, which is one subject matter, in tafsir, a person needs to at least capture or master 15 different subject matters or 15 different disciplines. And then that person will be a master or what we call qualified to do tafsir of the Quran. So imagine that. So for one science of Islam, which is a very important one, which is tafsir, just like all of these others are very important, you have to master at least 15 other sciences to be able to do that or render it, correct or be a good authority in that field. So some of those I mentioned, I just wanted to highlight these. The knowledge of the Arabic language and vocabulary. That in itself is a whole degree, a whole lifetime of learning. And like right now we have a class in Alessandro running, it's called conversational Arabic. It's just a matter of تكلم في العربية, speaking in Arabic, right? So in that class we have Sheikh Isa who is teaching, and he did his masters in Arabic. So he spent 4 plus at least 2 to 3 years, 7 years just focusing on Arabic language. Arabic language, just the language. I mean, yes, uh, it has different parts of the language, which is Arabic grammar. This is one as well, but this is just the vocabulary part is very important. I mean, this is also another part that you have to study the Arabic grammar because grammar itself is big. The sarf, right? Morphology, then Arabic words and its structure as well, because the structure of sentences itself is a whole topic in itself, but it all ties into language itself. Arabic rhetoric, which is called balagha, which is a special way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks in Quran, which is not commonly found in normal Arabic language. So that's something to understand, because if you don't understand the context of how the placement is in words, you wouldn't understand the essence of how Allah is trying to speak to you. Then the eloquence itself of it, which is also balagha, a different type of balagha. The manners of oratory, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks as well. The knowledge of kirat, how it is pronounced, because kirat itself has different vowels, which we are accustomed to one Quran, right? But just making this simple, I'm just saying it in simple words. Do you know there's 7 Qurans? When I say 7 Qurans, the same Quran, but certain words are recited in different ways. 7 major ways. So some of the vowels actually sometimes change and the sound change. Now, I'm not saying it's different Qurans. I'm saying it's the same exact Quran, but yes, it's recited in Asim, is recited in Warsh. So there's different qirats. Now these qirats are mutawatir. Mutawatir means it's directly from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, such volumes of people that it's impossible to have any changes or any discrepancies. It's the same thing. So it's the same Quran, but there's different manners of reciting. And even the Quran, they learn it. Like Hafiz Zakaria in our masjid, he has learned the 7 different qirats. The point I'm making with these 7 different qirats, there's actually 7 different aspects of interpretation and meaning sometimes that can change. Yeah. Just by changing the vowel can change the meaning. And that's why I explained it last week as well. When you look at the Quran, we don't have an English Quran, we don't have a German, we don't have a French Quran, we don't have other language Qurans. It's only Arabic. Quran is only in its main original form, which is in Arabic. So now that being said, Arabic allows you to have these changes. And that's why I said when you look at the English Quran, this is an interpretation of the closest meaning that the author who is translating wants to portray for his reading masses, for the people, trying to explain the Quran to you. But the reality is it's full of knowledge.
So I could know the people who have the reciting the Quran in different ways, right? They have to teach that.
Teachers that teach students, no, it's yeah, it's
All right, I could
in-depth study, and it spends years and years of doing this before you kind of get a mastery to.
guy from from yeah, guy from beside Maghreb.
Yeah, in different
Everybody thought that man go away there.
yeah
Everybody thought different.
different yeah. And you know what's the fun fact about that? Here's the fun fact, right? These are acceptable ways of reciting. That's why I said it is mutawatir. That's a special terminology, mutawatir. It means that the chain of narrators is direct, and there's no doubt in the chain of how it passes down, right? You want to sit down? Just pull this a little bit now and make a space. Or you can, you want to pull out so yes, they want some. No, just pull out the package or turn it that way so there's more space to. All right, yeah, it's okay for now, inshallah. So the tribes would have had a major impact on that. But the point I make is because it's mutawatir, that's the only reason why you could pray, you could change it in salah and you can pray according to different qira'ats, right? And that's a part of knowledge as well as passed down to us. And if it wasn't mutawatir, I'm saying that's a level of authenticity. If it wasn't to that level, you couldn't even recite it in salah. So that's just like a academic fun fact, because if you take that mutawatir, there is others, which is 3 other different qirats. That's why I call 10 qirats. Is actually 10 different ones, but those other 3 doesn't come down with that level. So it's only the 7 you're allowed to recite in Quran, or you can recite the Quran like that. The other 3 you can't because it doesn't reach that level of authenticity. So yeah, sure. So in Salah, that's one of the things. And I try and check. Let's ask Hafiz Zakaria. Say, Zakaria, you have to recite some surahs for us sometimes in the different qira'ats because we have to hear it. We want to know that our deen has this essence of yeah.
When they get this different thing, they will because
We need to open up our things, right? Get the depth, right, of knowledge. So that was the whole general topic I was speaking about last week, was understand the fiqh of your deen and the fiqh of your salah, the deeper understanding of everything that we have in deen. When you get that, the essence of why you do something, how you do something becomes enjoyable. Think about it. Now, knowing that there's different qirats, right? And now I said, hey, let's have Zakaria recite a different qirat. Now you want to hear that, right? Secondly, is when he recites it, you already will be like smiling in your salah. Why? Because you know that there's a different qiraat that can be recited and you never heard it, now you're hearing it, or even if you hear it, you might be able to even separate, okay, this is warsh. Warsh is very different. You'll hear the difference in it, right? And when warsh is being recited, everybody else in his salah will become confused. They'll be like, what's happening here? Look how he's reciting, right? Like that time. But you will be like, you're reciting this different kirat and it sounds like warsh, and you become happy in your heart. Why is this? Because now you get the essence of knowledge. You're getting the feeling of knowledge. Now take that example right there. Isn't that something now you'll be like anticipating and happy about? In fact, you'll be smiling. I remember listening to different kirats and I'll be like, okay, I'm trying to pinpoint which kirat is which kirat, and okay, he's going to make the different sound here. Like for example, I'll give you an example of different kirat. Like when you're saying wadduha, right? Wadduha wal-layli idha saja ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma qala. In Warsh is recited like this. Wadduhi wal-layli idha saji ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma qala. So now when you hear that, right, you're thinking, hey, is this some old time man who can't recite his tajweed properly and these kind of things? But reality is that when you have the knowledge, you'll be like, all you don't know, I know what's happening right here. So that's what I was trying to show you all. The essence of knowledge brings about the love and the admiration for Deen. And you all would have had other experiences when you realize that, okay, for example, the deception of the world, right? What's happening right now? Allah says, Allah calls a, a dunya signal mu'min. First of all, it's a jail, like it's limitations to your rights and your freedoms. This world. This world is like that. It's limited. That's what a jail is, right? It's even a corrective facility for you, because this world is about following certain rules. And what rules are there? The rules of Allah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this world is a deception, is gharur, it is deceptive. And when you look at what's happening on the world stage right now, clear cut, open deception. Nobody can even look at it and say, hey, you know, this thing is deeper. It's just so deceptive, the world. Most of the wars are being fought all on deception, all on bombardment, all on wealth. Is about money, is about generating you know difficulty. The rich get richer, the people who have the power, they become more powerful. All these things carry on and on and on. And it's a cycle of warfare. It's not about this needs to happen. Why is it that you're going to, for example, bomb Yemen, when Yemen is not a country who you ever had any fear factor or thing, but you're ready to quickly bomb them because why? Your goods and your services not being met. So there's all this craziness that's happening, and it's absolute nonsense. That being said, the hadith that we spoke about is 4 questions that was asked of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this hadith as well is one of the basis of ilm and knowledge, seeking more knowledge. Jibreel came and he started to ask questions. Now again, fun fact for you, there was 2 things the Prophet ﷺ asked more of. One is knowledge. Allah commanded the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said to him, "Qur Rabbi zidni ilma." Say to them, say, Rabbi zidni ilma. What does that mean again? Oh Allah, increase me in knowledge. Rabbi, oh my Lord, zidni, increase me, ilma, in knowledge. So Rabbi zidni ilma, oh Allah, increase me knowledge. So this is a dua that we should recite every day. I'll try to make it in a little paper or something and give you all out. Learn that dua and recite it every day. Rabbi zidni ilma. Oh Allah, give me more knowledge. So the Prophet ﷺ is asking, he's the Prophet of Allah. The other thing for the fun fact is he asks more of is milk. What's the dua for reciting milk? Allahumma barik lana fihi wa zidna minhu. Oh Allah, give us barakah in it, wa zidna minhu, and increase us from it. Milk. So milk and increase us in it. So Allahumma barik lana fihi. Oh Allah, give us barakah. When he would drink milk, that's the dua that he would say. Oh Allah, give us barakah in the milk and the food that we consuming, and Allah increase us in it as well. Increase us in the milk, because milk is one of those things that's filling, that has a lot of nutrients as well. And it is, the thing that for beginning portion of your whole life, you can actually live off, right? A child is takes all the nutrients and so on from his mother and so on. So I mean, there's so many different things that we can talk about, but I don't want to go into that topic. Now go on to the 4 questions that we highlighted. This hadith, Jibreel came, and you should look at the hadith. It's a lengthier hadith. I'm just highlighting 4 things here. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu was asked, "Oh Muhammad, tell me about Islam. Tell me about faith, which is Iman. Tell me about ihsan, which is excellence, and tell me about the final hour." So inshallah, in this whole course, these are the different topics that we're going to be talking about. All right. And then he said in the end of it, verily Jibreel came. He was Jibreel who came to teach you your entire religion. Your religion is summarized into these 4 questions. So those 4 questions is a basis for anything that we want to talk about. And you'll see how that happens. So tell us about Islam. The Prophet ﷺ replied, Islam is to testify that there is no God but Allah. And tashhadu an la ilaha illallah. So that you testify that the oneness of Allah. So testification itself is a requirement to become a believer. And two quick incidents, I'll show you how that works, is that you cannot become a believer by just in the heart. So it is required iqrar bil lisan. It is required that the person speaks it out in his mouth. An example of that is Najashi. Najashi, the king Najashi, no, not Negus, the king, who, no, it's Negus. One was Negus and the other king was, slipped my mind right now. But one of the kings, he believed in his heart, and then his people kind of didn't believe with him, right? And then afterwards, he didn't go ahead and profess his faith in Islam, right? So he believed in his heart. He knew that that was the truth, and he said, "Oh, you know, if it was for Muhammad, I would have kissed his feet and so on." He believed, he understood that this is the Prophet of Allah. But you know what? He wasn't able to profess it outside. So he's not considered a Muslim because he rejected it by his tongue. He didn't bring it out, right? And another one where it is a person who says that he believes, but he doesn't have it in his heart. And what happens? He's a hypocrite. So there was many hypocrites at the time. Abdullah bin Salul, at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he would say that, you know, I am a believer and so on, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew what was in the heart, and he was actually a disbeliever. So these two things must come together to be able to really show shahada. That's why when someone comes to accept Islam, what do you say? You say, testify, say, Qul ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. So you believe in the oneness of Allah, and you believe in all of the different knowledge or the tenets of faith that the Prophet Muhammad brought. Because the Prophet brought the Quran, the Prophet brought the Iman, the Prophet brought the Islam, everything, right? So you believe in that. So when you say you believe in the Prophet Muhammad, it means whatever Muhammad has said, I believe. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So this is us. So this is testification of faith. And I want to talk about that, but it will again come together, inshallah. The second thing is that to establish salah, to give charity, which is zakah. Salah is obviously something that we're going to talk about. To fast in the month of Ramadan, and to perform pilgrimage of the Hajj. So this is the 5 things that was mentioned in Islam, right? Now moving forward, Islam is to testify that there is no God but Allah and Messenger of Allah. All right, we spoke about that. Moving to why I am going to connect everything is because when we come to fasting, which is the month of Ramadan, we do an act, which is fasting. Now, besides the month of fasting and the act of fasting, what else do we do? Tell me, what the actions of Ramadan is? Pray, Quran, dua, do good deeds, right? Or one of the things you do, so that you become pious. So that you become pious, you actually start staying away from evil deeds. You start staying away from la ya'ni. Hear these words and try to write it down and try to learn it, right? La ya'ni is those things that don't have concern. There's no real benefit to it. So people turn off their TVs. They stop going on social media. They stop doing so many different things. They stop it. They stop many of the different activities. Not just because they're fasting alone, but because they know that, okay, this is not the month for those things. So they are things are without benefit. Also with that, they stop doing certain ills, which is like backbiting. They know that backbiting is a serious sin in Islam, but what happens is they become more mindful. You know what? Let me stay away from that crowd, yes, because I don't want to talk about this one and that one and that. Stop drinking alcohol. They even do that in the month of Ramadan, mashallah. And that's the barakah of trying to become pious. You leave off things that you may not have been able to do throughout the entire year, but you subdue your nafs towards the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what happened. Now, from the fiqh of Ramadan, there's an essence of what we're trying to get. Now, if we say to a person, hey, just stay away from this. This is the month of Ramadan. There are quite a few new Muslims and so on on this thing here. What happens with Ramadan when a person just prays in the night, Taraweeh, he stays away from fasting and he tries to pray his Salah? Does he get the essence of Ramadan yet? No, there's much more to it. He wants to go deeper. So that's where the fiqh and the understanding and the knowledge comes about. Example of that is the phases of the moon. Now, when something with the moon sighting comes up, right? When you have a good understanding of how the moon sighting works from a Shari'i perspective, you would say, you know what, mashallah, I'll keep talking, I will do my ibadah. And I have seen, like, when I was studying as well, our sheikh, very pious individual, still there, mashallah, guiding thousands of people. In the month of Ramadan, hundreds of people come for i'tikaf there. Up to 500 people, because the masjid is filled until there's no sleeping space. And during the day, people come from the locality around the area and fill the masjid. And the only reason there's a cap with the amount of people can stay because there's not enough spots to sleep on. And the entire building is filled out, right? Hundreds of people come for 10 days i'tikaf, right? I'll take you all one day, inshallah, in Leicester in UK. So the thing about that i'tikaf is that when the time for adhan calls for the ending of fast or the beginning, right? You will see them fully engaged in dua. Nobody cares about whether the time comes in, the moon is sighted, or anything happens. Everybody knows that this is the last moment that they have of Ramadan, so they sign off from all information. They don't want to know. You don't tell me. Let me make my dua until the last second goes and the time have changed until the next month. So if it's the next month, then I've lost that opportunity of Ramadan. And if it is still the Ramadan, then I'm still doing my ibadat, right? So there's no loss. Not in Nur-e-Islam. So, fail. I mean, what I'm saying is when you have the fiqh of it, you don't care about it. You continue doing your ibadat until, and you know what happens? You hear for example, the adhan being called. So sometimes they delay the adhan from Maghrib a little bit because you don't know, but a lot of times they know. So then they will call the adhan and then people start thinking. And then afterwards, announcement is made. People inside is indoor. Then the announcement is made. The Eid has been thing and so on and so on and so on. Right? What I'm saying is when you understand what is the essence, what has priority in your life, then you will act accordingly and then you would switch what is not important. Push that aside. I don't want to hear the old talk. I want to stay in the front line. That's why front lines have a better thawab and blessings from the back line. Now that is where we as people need to kind of like zone in and focus. How do I instill this in my life to make my life spiritual, my life full of that spirituality? Because now that becomes the essence of what you do, why you do it, how you're doing it. Everything matters after a while because then you realize the sunnah is so beautiful. Why did the Prophet ﷺ encourage this? Why did he do that? Why did he do this? And then you start becoming more and more engaged in it. So, for example, it now comes out of becoming a ritual or routine, or a routine ritual, and it starts becoming the essence of your khushu, of your focus on your spirituality as a person. Your tazkiyah starts becoming taking place, and then you become more refined and more closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. More sweetness. This is why you say that word, right? From our past predecessors, people would go into sujood and they would say that how I taste the sweetness of Prophet Sallallahu I taste the sweetness of Salah and sujood. The akrab ilallah, you're closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in sujood. Why does that sajda become so beautiful and so, close to you after a while? Why does our salah become so close? The Prophet Sallallahu says that the sweetness of my ibadah is in salah. Why do I connect to Allah in my salah? Because now and that's why every ibadah, some people connect to ibadah in different ways. When a person pulls out sometimes money from to give a charity, that giving of money is your ibadah. You're doing that now, connecting to Allah. Now that becomes so sweet to some people that when they have nothing, that's the time they give in, and that becomes the sweetness that you get out of it, you can't get from anything else. You can't get any pleasure afterwards. The pleasure that comes in your ibadah. And the pleasure becomes so intense that people go crazy in these ibadahs. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam talks, and this is what you call the partly, I mean, we'll touch on this more next week, the science of spirituality, which is termed tasawwuf. Now, tasawwuf is the essence of ihsan. And ihsan is being, where does that word ihsan come up? I talked about this as well already, today and last week. I should put the Arabic word sometimes, to help bring these things. Ihsan is basically what you call excellence. In this question here, this fourth question, I should have put number 4. Sorry, third question. Tell me about, the Arabic word is ihsan. Tell me about excellence. And this is what I'm talking about. The spirituality brings about the excellence in your ibadat. And this is a whole realm that we need to delve in more. We need to kind of get it. So when we pray every day, we want to know that prayer every day is not just accepted, but it gives us that sweetness and that connection to Allah. We want to feel that too, because Allah gives us that. What is called ذَاكَ طَعْمُ الْإِيمَانِ. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, ذَاكَ طَعْمُ الْإِيمَانِ. This is the taste of Iman. When a person says La ilaha illallah, and when he says it with the ihsan or the excellence, he feels a taste in his mouth. How do you feel the taste? It's because it becomes so intense, your ibadat, so connected, so spiritual, that you feel it. When you go in sajjah, you feel it. When you give charity, you feel it. And you know what? I know, because Allah makes us, we have plenty of work to do. Let's just put it that way. We have a lot of work to do in our spirituality. But we know that there are many times, if you reflect on the times that you can feel that essence of your ibadat, because I'm sure you have this, Allah gives us it sometimes. In your Ramadan, maybe in your dua, when you break down and you're crying to Allah, when you're, feeling overwhelmed, when you're in tahajjud salah, when you're sometimes you're praying and you're just out of it, you're by yourself, you're connecting to Allah. Sometimes it's when you're pushed to a certain position and you have to react, and then at that time you say, Allah, this is just for you, because you know what, I cannot control my own self, right? But you, Allah, I do this for you. Whoever it is, you find those moments. Sometimes you go for Hajj and looking at the Kaaba, you break down. You don't know when the moment is, but those moments, that taste that you get, and you wish you could experience it every so often. This taste can be experienced every day. This taste, when you reach the spirituality, you feel it in every single salah. When you stand and you say Allahu Akbar, you are talking to Allah. There's no barriers between you and Allah. You feel that connection that, wallahi, that, I want to spend my time in here. I don't want to do anything else. I'll go ahead and do whatever you want. My joy, and that's why I was giving examples. Muhammad Imam Muhammad Ash-Sha'bani, he said, how can I give up anything? Because when I go into my durus, I am with the prophets of Allah. I am with the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. My companionship is them. So everything else can wait. Once Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was in his daras, he was teaching, and and Imam Yusuf rahimahullah, sorry, it was Imam Yusuf, the student of Imam Abu Hanifa. Someone came to him and said, you know what, your son just passed away. He says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Can you go ahead with the arrangements? Min dars. Right? I mean, you would think that, what, and it's not because he's not fulfilling the responsibility. He knows the responsibility is going to be fulfilled, because he knows that, the deen is in his life. So this is important, but this is more important, right? My son passed away. This is from Allah. He's connected to Allah so much that when he's in his sessions, you know what? I know this is a big thing, and then after he'll go and he'll console and he'll do what he has to do, but he passed away. MashaAllah. I'm continuing in my. So that's my point. When you connect and you see the lives of the Sahaba, the pious predecessors, you know what? You realize that their lives and what they had was Jannah in this world. They could connect.
Even if you blame God.
Yeah. They're happy, they're contented in their hearts, you know. Certainly. So, what I was saying about fasting, about salah, this is what I want to connect it. This is the first topic, inshallah. I'll start as well next week. I'll talk a little bit about spirituality, but before salah actually comes about tahara. Why tahara? Our cleanliness, because certain things are keys to others. If we don't talk about tahara, we can't talk about salah properly, because tahara is missing, then a person's salah is not accepted. Now, salah itself is a pillar, second pillar of Islam. Salah is the key to paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, successful are the believers, the people, us. الَّذِينَ هُمْ الَّذِينَ, those خاشعون, who are humble. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ وَالَّذِينَ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خاشعون, and those people who are in their salah خاشعون. So this word khashi'un, that's where we get the word khushu'. Kha, shin, ain. Kha, shin, ain. Khushu'. The essence of submissiveness in salah is a different submissiveness. It's not just being a Muslim, just not being submissive to the will of Allah, but in salah you want to become khushu', submissive to the salah. So you want to get into that salah in that connection, in that way, in that manner that makes you fully connected. That Sahaba would be killed, or what do you call this? Arrows would shoot into them, and they wouldn't feel any pain. You remember about the incidents, and that's why when you read the lives of the Sahaba, you be like, Subhanallah, how? You're shocked. Once there was a Sahabi, there was an arrow in his body, and he said, you know, they had to take it out, but there was too much pain. So he said, I have a solution. Go and start salah. Start salah, and he's able to connect to Allah, and the arrow is removed. How? How is that possible? Anesthetic. So the point is, Iman brings us that. Belief brings us that. This is the essence of connecting to Allah. And what I try to remind people, when you connect to Allah, when you connect to the powerhouse, the source of your soul is able to do things that you can't even humanly imagine. You know what we call mu'jizat or karamat? Now, I'm not a person who goes and talks too much about the unknown and the unseen, right? MashaAllah, that is part of Iman. A part of our belief is Iman bil ghaib, the belief in the unseen. But I don't like the fairy tale sounding part of it. What I'm saying is not, wallahi, not the aspect of talking about realities, what is in our Quran and Sunnah. I have no problem in that. But some people actually use that to lure a sense of falseness in how, let me put it this way. Our human nature likes stories, and anything that you can't see or can't think, or you need to like hear as a story, we connect to that quickly. And we love, hey, really? Tell us about the Dajjal. Tell us about, you know, how he looks. What kind of special things and that's a quick thing that will catch on. But what has been said by Allah and His Rasul is fine. It's okay. But going further than that, mashallah, you could only touch a little bit and then, okay, belief is what is important. My point I'm making is that Salah makes us submit so much. So actually, I lost this story I was talking about. Karamat and mu'jizat. Mu'jizat is what the prophets of Allah would do. Mu'jiza, which is miracles. So the prophets of Allah had miracles that would take place. But after the prophets left, there's no more miracles to take place. But what was left is karamat, which is miracles, but not from prophetic stage. Miracles from pious people stage. Now you would think, is that possible?
Yeah.
Is that real? Is that physically according to the laws of physics possible? You would say yes. Why is it possible? Because karamat is part of our belief and our aqidah as Muslims. We believe in it. It's a part of our belief system. And what am I speaking about? I'm saying that it is possible that someone does something and a miracle takes place. You know, a pious person can do things And it changes the scenario. For example, in our past predecessors, people have made dua for rain and right away rain comes. Make dua for wealth and people come with money. Make dua or say that, you know what, wallahi, I would never give up so and so person, and then that person is not given up. Why? What happens is, like, at the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, there's many incidents I can talk about, but he said that wallahi, the law was his hands would be cut, somebody's hands. He, being a pious person, said that wallahi, I swear by Allah, my sisters, I believe, hands would never be cut with this thing. And what happened is that the law has to be applied. There's no way it's not going to be applied. But because his intercession in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this person, a circumstance came about where the person came about, the people whose property was stolen came and said, you know what, I'm feeling sorry now for this person, forgive him. And when the law of forgiveness comes about, you can forgive the person's crime, and then the hand will not be cut. Now the law was going to be applied. He said, the Prophet ﷺ said in hadith, if Aisha was to take, if Fatima radiallahu anha was to steal something, I would cut her hand. There's no way to change this law. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pious people say something, that Allah changes the affairs of the people such that that changes everything. So to do that, though, is to be able to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why we will be delving a little bit, because I want us to at least connect to one of these aspects, which is our salah. And when we connect to our salah, you would see salah changing the entire world. Wallahi, it changes everything. So this is how we will continue, inshallah. So next week we'll talk about what is khushu, some of the essence of khushu, and some of the benefits that we get from it as well. I will continue in that thing, and a little bit about tahara as well. Jazakumullah for coming and tuning in, and we'll continue next week. Do encourage others, right? Because one of the benefits is, one is the amal of the masjid. Hey, give out this quickly, yeah. Give the sister before she leaves. This is not dinner, this is a snack. Alright, subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallah, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Jazakumullah khairan, assalamu alaikum. So inshallah, that's how we're going to go along. When we talk about the essence of what we do as Muslims, it will help our Ramadan, and you'll see the beauty of Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum.